This is the Surly Grognards for March 2nd, 2015. This is Peter Bowman, and as usual, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Eric Carlson. How are you doing tonight, Eric?
I'm doing all right, all things considered.
Yeah, so...
You're in an excellent mood.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to be a little bit less... I don't know.
Yeah.
Given the topic at hand, this week we're paying tribute to both of our favorites, Leonard Nimoy, who passed away this past week at the age of 83. Which,
good long life.
good
Well
long
done.
life. He lived
And he
up.
prospered even.
He lived up to his character's motto. Honestly.
Yeah.
So we figured, our friend Word suggested to us that this topic to us, and I thought, both of us thought it was actually a good thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Given the nature of our show and the affection both of us feel towards Nimoy and the character he's most famous for.
Yeah. Seriously, Spock was the OG nerd.
Oh, God,
You made
yeah.
it cool.
I mean, Spock is probably my favorite part of original Trek, in all honesty.
Yeah. I have to agree with you there.
I have a real soft spot in my heart for original Trek.
Yeah.
To the point when we actually did our show, sort of talking about Star Trek, and we actually ended up deciding to sort of rate our favorite sort of Star Trek series. Original Trek actually was my number one, it turned out. And I thought going into that it was going to be Next Gen. And then I spent some time thinking about it, and I realized that Original Trek just sort of beats out just on its sheer importance and sort of its role in shaping television.
Yeah, and original Trek also wasn't afraid to not take itself seriously.
Right, and while at the same time tackling some fairly tough subjects.
Yes.
Which is impressive. And doing it well, usually. If you haven't watched Original Trek, it's definitely worth watching. Despite the
absolutely.
Despite the definitive campiness, and you'll have to remember that it is, it came out in the '60s and early '70s, with '60s, right? Late '60s. I'm blanking on time periods right now for some reason. I don't know why. It ran for 3 seasons in the late '60s. But yeah, we're not talking about Trek per se. I mean, we're gonna have to, because Nimoy is best known for Spock.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
He's so closely associated with the character, and Spock is such an iconic just character in not just science fiction or television, just in fiction.
Yeah, here's the thing. In Star Trek, in most representations of Star Trek, I don't like Vulcans. I find them, on the whole, to be arrogant to the point of hubris and condescending. But
Yeah.
Spock was fucking cool.
Well, yeah.
Spock was a good guy.
There are a few counter examples to the overall sort of arrogance.
Sarek was pretty cool.
I like Sarek. I like Sarek a lot.
He made condescension tolerable.
Well,
I think that was entirely because of the actor.
Oh well, yes. Oh God. What's his? I can't remember his name all of a sudden. It's Mark.
I can't remember the actor's name. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look this up right now.
But he was also
Mark Leonard.
yes, Mark Leonard. That's it. And he was also the Romulan commander in Balance of Terror. Was that the name of that episode?
Yep.
Yes.
One of my absolute favorite episodes of Star Trek, actually. Despite that it is very much an homage at best to a great World War II flick, Run Silent, Run Deep.
Oh no, absolutely. But yeah, one of the great things about Spock, this is entirely down to Nimoy's portrayal of the character, is that Spock wasn't without emotion. You could see it there. He was just a master at controlling it.
Yes.
And Yeah, especially as a young kid who was completely ruled by his emotions. Let me tell you. Cry and rage at the same time at a drop of a hat in the middle of math class. That was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Spock was. If I couldn't be Darth Vader, I wanted to be Spock.
I can't fault you on that.
Yeah.
Spock was a. It's not just the the intellect and the emotion. It's just the sheer goodness of the person behind all that too. It's
Yeah. Absolutely.
fantastic, heroic character of just, and as you said, portrayed brilliantly by Nimoy and well written.
Hell, Nemo was even my favorite Decepticon leader. I mean, Megatron was cool, but Galvatron wasn't putting up with none of Starscream's shit.
Sadly, Galvatron was a little bit crazy.
Well, I'm talking about the real Galvatron, not the one that came in the season after the movie.
He was kind of crazy in the movie.
Yeah, but he was the right kind of crazy. Also, Leonard Nimoy is a killer robot. What do you want?
Oh man, but yeah, so he I'm trying to think of exactly, sort of things I want to. It's just like, beyond just Spock. I mean, we're both big fans of something else he was involved in during the late '70s.
In Search of.
In Search of, which is a wonderful show.
I ate that show alive when I was younger, and it always seemed to be on in like reruns at like the weirdest times.
Yeah,
like 3 a.m. or like 2 in the afternoon, or just could never pin down when to actually be able to watch it. But it was on somewhere.
Yeah,
and it was very much the prototype for all of those sort of like paranormal like magazine shows like Sightings or Monster Quest and the like.
Right. Although
except with a better host.
With a much better host for the most part. It was originally narrated by Rod Serling, which again,
yeah, talk about fucking pedigree.
The pedigree on the show just like goes from from Rod Serling to Leonard Nimoy. I mean,
yeah, it's really just a lateral move, to tell you the truth. They're both fucking giants.
Yeah, absolutely. In very different ways. I mean, wow. But yeah, Nimoy. I think one of the things that I personally will always remember about Nimoy, and there's nothing to do with Star Trek or anything like that, or anything big things he's done, is here in Boston, the Museum of Science opened up a.
I know. I was going to bring that up.
Opened up an IMAX theater, one of the first in the country, to do a whole bunch of cool documentary stuff in IMAX.
Over at the Museum of Science.
Yeah, the Museum of Science, and they had this really cool sort of intro thing they do before every film that they did there. They're sort of talking about showing scenes of Boston, and Nimoy did some narration on it, and they had voiceovers. People say, "Why do we bring Nimoy into this?" And then Nimoy pepped up because he grew up 2 blocks away from here.
Yeah,
because he's originally from Boston. So, well, that's asterisk. He grew up in Boston. I forget where he was born.
Doesn't matter. We claim him as our own. Screw you. Yeah, no, I totally remember my first time in the IMAX theater over at the Museum of Science, and he starts doing the sound test, and he goes, "Who put the bop in the bop to bop to bop?" And it bounces all over the place. I remember being like 8 or 10 or something, going, "Oh my God, Spock is singing nonsense at me from everywhere. This is the best thing ever."
Yeah, he actually was born in Massachusetts. I'm incorrect. His parents were from Poland and the Ukraine. Yeah, from the Ukraine. Looking this up now. He grew up speaking Yiddish, from everything I understand, actually. Which actually worked its.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, it worked. It worked. Yeah, it worked its way into Spock. Actually, the whole "live long and prosper" symbol sign thing was actually something he got from some of the hand signs that rabbis used to do during during Torah readings and such.
Huh.
And it's I forget what it's something to do with a it's from one of the blessings that they do, that the rabbis do during, I think, the priestly blessings. I think it's really neat, actually.
Yeah, that is really cool. I had no idea.
Yeah, and he's there's a lot of stuff about him I didn't know until I really started doing research, looking into it for the show. Like, I didn't know about his fight with alcoholism during Star Trek, and
I did know that.
I didn't know about that until after. I also found out that, this is something I found out from reading some stuff that Shatner wrote after he passed, but that Nimoy basically really worked hard and tried to help Shatner's second wife with her fight with alcoholism, although it was ultimately pretty much unsuccessful, sadly.
Yeah, the whole alcoholism thing is like a big part of how like Nimoy and Shatner got to be good friends. Shatner was a prima donna.
Yeah,
but like he ended up he ended up helping out Spock with his alcoholism. I don't know if he was his AA sponsor or not, but he. Like I remember reading a couple of stories about him like catching Nimoy going for a drink. It's like, no, stop, you don't do that anymore.
Yeah, for every awful everything that you could say negatively about Shatner, the friendship those two held is. Yeah,
Shatner's got a lot of faults, but he's a really good guy at heart, and this is true for everyone involved in Star Trek.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, I can't think of any like
the stories
real
about like
bastards in that cast.
Yeah, the stories about James Doohan,
yeah,
guy who played Scotty. The things he's done for people, he did for people, I should say.
I got to meet him briefly at Dragon Con about 6 months before his death.
Oh wow.
And I could not believe he was doing cons in his condition, because he was like hooked up to oxygen and in the wheelchair, but insisting on doing all the panels and shit. Like, wow, that guy's awesome.
Yeah,
and I almost got in a fist fight with someone who was talking shit about it. It's like, yeah,
wow,
yeah.
But yeah, going back to the character Spock for a bit, I think one of my favorite things about it is the way the writers, and because of the writers wrote Spock really well, and as we said, but Spock was really well used as a sort of vehicle to sort of examine humanity and what it meant to be human, and Nimoy just played it so pitch perfectly. I've always admired that about the original Trek and Nimoy specifically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there are some stories about like the original Trek about Nimoy butting heads with the directors and writers for going, do you seriously expect me to cover this Romulan chick with kisses, muttering stupid things like I adore you? Come on, that is so completely un-Spock.
Yeah. No, that, and he apparently, he pushed for equal pay for most of the cast, for the entire cast. Most specifically Nichelle Nichols.
Yes, because he heard about that, and he went on a little mini crusade for that.
Yeah, I believe it was her and Walter Koenig and George Takei. Behind the scenes, he just did a lot of. I think my other favorite story about him, though, is just sort of the whole evolution of the Vulcan nerve pinch. Which apparently this came about. It came about because there was a scene in which he was supposed to sneak up behind somebody and clock them over the back of the head with the butt of a phaser. And he basically said that just makes no sense for Spock. It's so not, it's just so unrefined. It's just not the way Spock would act there. And he came up with the idea of the Vulcan nerve pinch. And And so he talked. I forget the exact description of exactly what he described to the writers and such. But from what I understand, what completely sold him on it was that he and Shatner proceeded to do a little sort of mini scene with it where he did it to Shatner, and Shatner's sort of acting and selling of the effect. Just they all said, "Oh, okay, we're done. We're down." That's great. Just the whole.
I can't remember the episode, but there's a great scene where someone's taken over the Enterprise, and Spock just walks right up to their commander and goes, "Excuse me, there's a many-limbed arachnid on your shoulder," and he reaches out and nerve pinches the guy.
Oh my, that's great. I'd forgotten that one. But yeah, But it's the interesting thing is that if you go and you look at Nimoy's his career, and you realize that there's so much more to it than just Star Trek.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We were just talking about his stuff in Mission Impossible.
Yeah, which I'd completely forgotten had happened at all.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, huh. After Star Trek, he did that, and Shatner apparently, made sure to get him work on T.J. Hooker when he was doing that. Because he loved working with Nimoy so much, and they were friends. So he's like, I want to make sure my friend has work. And he wanted to work with him on. I'm not a big fan of T.J. Hooker. Let's just put it that way.
I don't know, it has a certain charm.
Oh, it absolutely does.
You're very drunk and very early in the morning.
It absolutely has some charm, and it's got things to recommend. I mean, it's not a terrible police show. It's a decent one, honestly, but it's not one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, it's no Dragnet.
It's no Dragnet. It's no Hill Street Blues. God, that show's good. That's neither here nor there. But and he did that. He's done voice work for various things here and there. As you mentioned, he was in the Transformers movie. And as we talked before, he hosted In Search Of for a long while, and that was great. I mean, but the thing everyone will remember is that he was Spock, and he for a while had trouble with that.
Yeah, no, there's the book I'm Not Spock.
Yeah, he wrote two
he
autobiographies.
Goes on at length about feeling pigeonholed by it, but at the end of the book he pretty much says, but if I had to do it all over again, I totally would. I loved being Spock.
Right, and he wrote a second autobiography titled, I Am Spock.
Right.
Sort of goes on to show. But he said that he found himself later in life that a lot of his his diction in normal everyday life basically picked up a lot of the mannerisms he developed for the character of Spock.
I hear a lot about that from longtime actors about how who do a role for a long time, they sort of take on aspects of that character and the way they talk or react to things.
Right. He's said that by the weekend while filming Star Trek the show, when he was filming the show, by the weekend he was basically living and thinking like Spock, and basically that he sort of come out of that and sort of eventually go back to quote normal by midday Sunday or so, and then Monday rolls around, he's got to get back into character again.
Right.
Which has to be taxing, but from everything I understand, I don't think he had a real problem with that because of the character that Spock was.
Yeah, like I said, Spock was fucking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot sort of to be admired in the sort of his looking at things from a logical standpoint. The sort of calm, sort of taking things in a calm and relaxed manner, and just sort of the general sort of and the empathy that Spock actually has.
Yeah, and Spock had a tremendous amount of empathy. I watched Star Trek VI a couple weeks ago, which is my second favorite Star Trek movie.
I would say that's probably mine second favorite also, behind
Wrath of Khan.
Yeah,
which I watched Friday, getting drunk with my roommate.
That's a great movie.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But
as an aside, I believe Nimoy was actually involved in the writing of Star Trek VI.
Yes. There's actually a great story about him wanting to do the TNG approach. The writers for TNG approached him to do the reunification two-parter where they're on Romulus.
Yep.
And he's part of the underground there. And he's like, I can't do it within your budget because of guild rules. I have to ask for this much, or I devalue both myself for future jobs and everyone else in the guild. But we can take out the difference in trade because Star Trek VI is coming out soon. And I can write it off as promotional for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Because he wanted to do it, and he loved TNG also, and he wanted to be on TNG and play Spock again.
And honestly, that stuff with the whole Romulan reunification thing and his role in that was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it was Spock being very Spock.
Hey, right down to these, like, barely contained fury at Sela.
Yes.
Because you got that in 6 also with Valeris? Was that the Vulcan girl's name?
I forget.
I want to say it was Valeris. It was a V sound. Where he finds out that the conspiracy she's involved in. I'm not going to give any more away because it's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. And just this barely contained fury is just coming off of him like waves. And not in like these spitting venom, shaking kind of thing. It's just like, Spock's pissed. You know Spock is pissed.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I adore Star Trek VI for many reasons. And Spock's a large part of it, honestly.
Yeah. Spock's one of the best portrayals of Klingons.
Yes.
They're not completely absorbed by their space berserker aspect, but it's still there. But you've got much more of the they're more like real Vikings than than berserker Vikings. Bleh. I've been drinking, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
that and General Chang quoting Shakespeare while firing torpedoes at people is fucking awesome.
Oh man, I started looking at sort of the other stuff he's done. I mean, he was in one of the remakes of Invasion of the Body Snatchers in '78.
Yep, I remember. That's actually my favorite version of that movie.
It's a good one, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a while since I've seen it, so
it's the male lead has sort of like the blonde white guy throwing the mustache.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
How very 70s.
So many Invasion of the Body Snatchers movies.
Yeah.
That's one that gets remade every decade or so.
Yeah. I can kind of get why, but, it's a little,
Well, it's a great metaphor for whatever boogeyman is in the closet that decade, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, and Leonard Nimoy is such a giant nerd, and we love him for it. I mean, the dude recorded an album that's just him singing about friggin' Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Oh.
If you thought Shatner had some musical missteps, you should hear this.
Oh, the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins is awful. I love Nimoy. I can't... It's a terrible song. It really is.
Amazing character actor, not a musician.
No. And that's fine. And from everything I understand, he had a blast doing it, so I can't fault him. I don't fault him at all, but it's not good.
As long as it paid for its costs, it's a win in my book.
Oh God! But back to that whole sort of In Search of. He also did Ancient. He was also the narrator for Ancient Mysteries in the '90s.
Oh, was he?
Yes, he was.
I ate those up. But I don't remember that. Probably because in the '90s I was watching all of those, often marathoning them because they like different channels would have them staggered. Apparently, just for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing like beating your own paranoia with stories about alien abduction.
Oh God. But yeah, it just. I really, really just. I'm gonna miss him.
Yeah. I mean, he hadn't done anything for a while. I mean, he was apparently a recurring character in Fringe. Fringe is one of those shows I keep on telling myself to get into and just never do.
Yeah, I watched the first 2 seasons of it. It was pretty solid. I just didn't. I took a break from it. Haven't gotten back to it yet.
Yeah.
Um.
It's got the taint of Abrams on it, so it puts me off. Honestly, I still don't forgive him for Lost.
Love the first season of that show.
Great first season. Then it just falls off a cliff and never really finds its way back out.
Yeah. He's he's. But again, it's amazing how much just that. I mean, that short run of the original series.
Yeah.
That only got a few years, like
3 seasons.
3 seasons, and the third season was short, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I remember reading about this a while back. Like the third season suffered from like big budget cutbacks, while at the same time a lot of studio meddling. Because the network was demanding more. We want more stuff on planets. Well, give us the budget. We'll give you more stuff on planets. That's what we want to do. This is how shit like Spock's brain gets made.
Yeah, that sounds strangely familiar as a Doctor Who fan. Poor Colin Baker.
Yeah.
Although that was even more awfulness.
Amazing Technicolor douche coat.
That's not the really bad. Just the amount of studio meddling in the second season.
Well, they were actively trying to kill it.
Yeah.
Was the thing.
Well, some of them were, and some of them weren't. You know, there's
the head of the BBC absolutely despised Doctor Who and was actively doing everything he could to kill it.
Yeah, and there's the cross directives, more humor, but from some people, and say more drama from other people, and more serious. And it's like, make up your
pick one. Otherwise, you end up with a very schizophrenic series like Colin Baker's run.
Yeah.
I don't fault Colin Baker, but yeah, his character is totally like the Amazing Technicolor douche coat. He's my least favorite Doctor by far.
But there's 3 seasons of Star Trek, the original series, and then the 6 movies he was he actually was he in Generations at all?
No. I remember he actively avoided being involved in Generations because that was going to be Shatner's big send-off for the series.
Also, it was terrible.
It was a subpar next-gen two-parter is what it was. Of course, you could say that about all the fucking friggin' next-gen movies.
They're all not good.
Was it First Contact is the one with the time-traveling book? It's a time-travel Star Trek movie that actively manages to be the best of the bunch for next-gen.
I didn't like that movie at all.
No, it's bad, but it's better than friggin' Nemesis.
I don't know. I think I actually find Nemesis less insulting.
I don't know if you can get less insulting than Nemesis, unless you're talking about Star Trek V.
That doesn't count.
Which is not canon anymore.
Yeah, Spock's brother. Who?
Yeah, that didn't happen. That's not real.
Never happened.
Largely ignored by everyone.
Yeah, I just my biggest problem with First Contact is it runs roughshod over a bunch of things I really liked in Star Trek before that. Between it does a number on the character of Zephyr Cochrane, who was in the original series, and they basically ignore
Yep.
a lot of the things that were established about Cochrane in that. Also, it completely just shoots the Borg in the head, which is one of the... It finishes
Why
the
did you
job.
need to give them a queen? They didn't need a queen. They're terrifying without a queen. You give them a queen, they become kitsch.
I
Of
agree.
course, to be fair, the Borg's long descent into mediocrity really started with Hugh.
Well, yes.
The cutest little Borg ever.
That wasn't a terrible episode, but it wasn't good. It's just the beginning of the whole, the poor Borg.
Yeah.
Why are you ruining the Borg? They were so awesome as villains. They're not even really villains, antagonists, really. I mean,
Yeah. They're less... The Borg are less villains and more a natural disaster to be avoided.
Yeah, pretty much. Which is, I think, one of the most fascinating things about them.
Yeah. And I'll give this to Voyager, which I've been rewatching because I'm a masochist.
Why would you do that, Eric?
Because I'd already seen all the other Treks recently, except for Enterprise, which is even worse. But yeah, they gave a modicum of respect back to the Borg before they took it away.
Yes. the first part of the two-parter where they reintroduced the Borg is like, oh, that's... The Borg are the Borg! This is great! And... Oh, never mind. Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, fucking Spock, man. Spock was awesome.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, and I don't... Yeah, I'm confession time for me. Back when I was in middle school, I obsessed over Star Trek the way only middle school kids could obsess over things.
Right.
It earned me no friends. But yeah, it was, and a large part of that was Spock and Nimoy. Also, Klingons are awesome. But yeah, I loved the friggin' original series as a kid. It was my favorite one in middle school, hands down. Like they didn't have the Klingons right because how Next Gen didn't have the Klingons right yet.
Yeah, I was a big Star Trek fan also. I remember when Next Gen was basically being announced to be coming out, I being so unbelievably just psyched beyond all belief. I'm like, oh my god, new Star Trek, new Star Trek!
Yes.
I was so excited, and I ate up the first season. Despite it's looking back at it, the first season of Next Gen, not that good, not that good.
Even as a kid, I was like, it's Star Trek, therefore I love it because I love all things Star Trek, but this is not good.
there are parts of that are really good.
Yeah,
I mean, there are, because that's the thing with Next Gen's highs were so good.
Oh no, Next Gen is really good. Don't get me wrong. I love Next Gen, but the first season is almost entirely Drek.
I wouldn't go quite that far, but
they've got the one where they encounter the energy being in the spatial void, who's like all like, I think I'm going to experiment with death. I'm going to kill this guy in the bridge. That's a really good episode.
Yeah, most of the stuff involving Q is pretty good.
Oh, right. Anytime Q shows up is pretty damn good. I forgot he showed up in more than just the pilot in the first season.
Oh, yeah. He shows up a couple of times.
That was the one that had the red shirt orcs.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I think that was first season.
But the show really found its feet in the second season. There's no question about that.
It really found its feet once Roddenberry took his hands out from around its throat, because he really had a stranglehold in that series for the first season, and it showed.
Yeah,
it was largely trying to do original series Star Trek, but serious, right, without any of the fun.
I wouldn't go that. I am more.
You're more forgiving of it than I am.
I'm definitely more forgiving of it than you are.
I will still say, like, DS9 is my favorite overall Trek, but Best of Both Worlds is my favorite overall Star Trek episode.
Yeah, I can't argue. Best of Both Worlds Parts 1 and 2 are it's
fucking amazing.
It's probably the Star Trek's pinnacle. It's just across the board. I mean, I love original.
Discounting Star Trek 2, which is fucking brilliant.
I'm talking the TV series specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, and I will say this. The other thing I think I find most fascinating about Next Gen is it's the one time they've tried because virtually every Trek series they try to sort of recapture some of the Spock magic to a certain degree, and Data is the most successful attempt at doing that.
Yeah, they do a little bit of that with Odo, but Odo is such a completely different character from Spock.
But he was definitely there, so that tried to fill that sort of niche.
He's that outsider looking in kind of thing.
Right. So they had Spock, Data, Odo, Tuvok to a degree.
Yeah, Tuvok was like the violent '90s version of Spock.
I like Tuvok. He's one of the few things I like about Voyager.
Yeah. Tuvok actually develops a great sense of humor, which I've been watching develop over the series. There's a great bit where Tuvok gets a promotion in Voyager, and they're all telling stories about pranks that they've pulled on Tuvok in the past. Harry and Paris are talking about how they've reprogrammed all of the consoles Tuvok interacts with to only respond with "Live long and prosper." And it comes time for Tuvok to accept his promotion. He goes, "If I had known ritual humiliation was part of this, I would have declined. However, I can only respond with live long and prosper." That actually got me to laugh out loud.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, those characters wouldn't exist really without Spock and without Nimoy.
Spock, without Nimoy, like even with. Yeah, because Nimoy is pretty much the only reason Spock wasn't generic throwaway alien character.
Right. And that's the thing is Spock Nimoy made Spock so compelling, and I think you got to look back at you look back at him, and there's a reason they kept trying to recreate that sort of character, that role specifically, and
because it throws such a great mirror up on everything that they're doing.
Yep. And I think part of the reason Data was so successful at that is because
Brett Spiner's got fucking talent.
Well, it's not just that though. It's because he unlike the other ones, he really does a great job at the character is set up perfectly to be that sort of look into what it means to be human.
Yes.
Because of his soul, because of what Data wants, which is to be human.
Right. Back to Reunion, the Next Gen episode again, with the bit with Spock and Data interacting and discussing their relationship with humanity. Spock goes, I find it interesting that you try to be more human. You are by design everything I've ever aspired to be. Data goes, I find it interesting that you feel that way because you are by design everything I aspire to be.
Right.
Like you get to be you get to be part human, but you get to be purely logical all the time.
Right. It's a wonderful scene.
Yeah.
And both of them just completely
both of them
nail
sell it with like utter subtlety. Like I am not a subtle person, but I can recognize and respect it when I see it.
Right.
And it's
It's
wow.
a very nuanced performance by both of them.
And it's beautiful. It's great.
It's well written. It's brilliantly acted. I'm more of a Nimoy fan than I'm a Brent Spiner fan. Spiner's a little bit too
batshit insane.
Yeah, that's it.
a lot of the Next Gen cast are batshit insane.
Yeah, they really are. The story. I mean, like everything you hear about Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart's one of the best descriptions of Patrick Stewart I ever heard was actually from a panel I saw with Warren Ellis on it. He was talking about working with Patrick Stewart and them going out to dinner afterwards, and Stewart like going into this big long thing where he's quoting Animal Farm demanding more whiskey because he had been drinking. And that man is more twisted than a bag of snakes. Like, That's awesome.
But I think it's just it's interesting. As much as when you think of Star Trek, I mean, you do think of
First thing that pops into your head is Bones, Kirk, and Spock.
The trio.
Yeah, the Holy Trinity.
And their interactions are just so perfect. I mean,
yeah, and the obvious affection the three characters have for each other. Even Bones and Spock, who spend so much of their time sniping each other, but it's that sort of affectionate teasing that you see between like two friends who can't really tell each other how they feel, so they just make fun of each other.
Yeah,
like, we're good friends, but we can't admit it, so I'm just going to call you a douchebag at every opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say that DeForest. I mean, Nimoy is the best actor of the three, definitively.
Yes.
Shatner is a gigantic ham.
That man is at least 90% pork.
Yeah, kidding.
90% pork, 10% hairpiece.
Yeah, pretty much. And, and DeForest Kelley's was not a great actor. He really wasn't. But he
sold Bones pretty well, though.
He was perfect for the role.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him in other things, including Night of the Lepus, the most ridiculous movie of the 70s.
I've not seen it, but I've heard about it. And
I saw it once at like 3 a.m. in high school during one of those like friggin' midnight, late night. Let's shove whatever we have on stock on the air to sell ad time, and I was like, "The fuck!" It's Dr. McCoy fighting giant bunnies that are trying to be scary but just manage to look adorable. And I honestly thought it was just a fever dream that I had coming home stoned and drunk from playing Dungeons and Dragons with bikers, honestly. And then someone did a review of it online, like, holy shit, this was real?
I remember seeing that movie, seeing a videotape of that movie at the video store one day when I was going to rent stuff, and I'm looking at it going, no, I can't rent this. I can't do it. I will regret spending the money on renting this, and I'm almost certain I would have. But there's still that small part of me that really wishes I had. But yeah, those three. I mean, and you obviously everyone thinks also thinks of Scotty because
yeah,
and
because Scotty was also awesome.
Well, James Doohan was fantastic. I mean,
yeah. I still remember the bit in Trouble, the Trouble with Tribbles, or where they're sitting in the bar on the space station and Klingons are talking shit about Kirk, and Chekhov's getting more and more pissed, and Scotty's like, "Calm down, it's cool, it's all right. He's trying to get our goat. He wants a fight. Don't give it to him." And he starts talking shit about the Enterprise, and Scotty just loses it.
Oh. I've always had I mean, Scotty's probably my second favorite character from the original series.
Yeah, Scotty sort of filled that role that I always tend to gravitate towards in fiction, of the laid-back, happy henchman sort of thing.
Yeah, but it's very clear that he's got his own sort of strengths as a leader. I mean, because he does a brilliant job.
That's why there's a reason why he's always left in charge whenever they go on an away mission.
Right, because he's actually really good at that, and everyone respects him. That's the thing. Is like I also love there aren't as many of the interactions between Scotty and Spock as there are between Spock and McCoy and Kirk. But I always really enjoyed those little moments those two had. They were brief usually, and not they weren't lengthy, but there was always that sort of very clear sort of respect the two characters had for each other.
Yeah.
Both being sort of effectively
and beyond like a professional respect.
Yeah.
Also.
Well, there's that, but it does. Like, but it's. I think they have sort of similar sort of intellectual mindsets. Because with Scotty being an engineer and Spock being a scientist, and that played out really well with the way the actors played the characters, and I think the affection and respect the two actors had for each other sort of came through in that.
Yes. And like I said, like everything I've heard about and ever so briefly experienced with James Doohan, the man's a giant fucking sweetheart.
Yeah, he was great. He was great. He was a great person from everything I've understood. Also, a complete and total badass.
Yes.
The stories of because he fought in World War II, and the things he went what he survived.
What's up with fucking like people from that generation? It's like. I stabbed a bunch of people in the back as a spy in World War II. Also, I'm in a metal band now in my 90s.
Christopher Lee. Doohan, he just, he did all that stuff. But I mean, I think the most telling thing about that is the thing he looks back and is most proud of is probably the interaction he had with a fan who, wrote to him before a convention. Sort of, she was. Suicidal.
Oh, right. I remember hearing about this.
And she was suicidal, and she was writing that. He basically wrote back to her immediately and said, "Look, be sure to talk to someone and be there." And he made sure that she could be at the convention. And he basically told her, "I want to see you at the next convention." And for years, he made sure that she was there at every convention so he could talk to her, and she'd make sure she was getting through it. And then he didn't hear from her again for a couple of years, and then he got a letter from her saying that she finally had gotten through it, and that he was a huge part of that, and she would never forget that. And like, there's an interview where he's talking about it, and just I can't watch that interview without tearing up. I'll be completely honest.
I'm tearing up right now, honestly.
it's one of the most just amazing things I've ever seen from anyone.
I think he refers to it as his greatest accomplishment.
Yeah, it is. And on a list of a guy who was a war hero,
yeah,
it's saying something, because he was, and I agree with him. I mean,
it's pretty awesome,
and it's that sort of thing. It's why I've got so much respect for everybody from that show. Honestly, between sort of Nimoy's just general awesomeness, and his pushing for making sure that everyone on the show was well properly compensated, and how they all work together, and his battling with alcoholism and making sure to help others in the same position. DeForest Kelley was, from everything I understand, just a great guy. Shatner, as much as he was a prima donna,
as much of a dick as he was, he really stood up for the rest of the cast at every opportunity.
As much as
unless it involved like him not getting enough screen time,
right? As much as Takei has problems with him, because Takei does.
Takei and Shatner are not friends.
No. But despite that, there's that sort of the Doohan and Nimoy, everyone in that cast just loved the two of them.
Yeah.
And I think also the support all of them gave Nichelle Nichols.
Yeah.
Who
again, she's still alive?
She is, and she's
awesome.
She's
good to hear.
She continues to be awesome.
Yeah, she's like all kinds of kick-ass. Yeah, I remember watching the Comedy Central roast of William Shatner.
Yeah.
And Nimoy couldn't make it for whatever reason. And like had actually sent with like each of the cast, like, you will mention me. and like in particular, I remember George Takei getting up for it and going, "I have waited 30 years to say this, but fuck you and the horse you rode in on."
Well, it's doubly brilliant because Shatner literally rode in on a white horse.
Literally rode in on a white stallion.
Takei is wonderfully hilarious. But just the I don't have enough good to say about. I have too much good to say about Nimoy. It's hard to
We've
articulate.
got no bad things to say about the dude.
No. And we shouldn't, honestly. I mean, he was a great guy.
He must have something bad we can say about him. I feel like we should, just for completeness' sake. He's I don't.
He was a terrible singer.
Yes, he sucked at singing.
And you know what? I still have sort of, I'm happy he did the album.
Yes.
It's terrible.
Every time I feel bad about my various talents, I could just listen to that album and feel better.
But it's not even just that. It's the joy he had in doing that.
Absolutely.
And
the complete lack of self-consciousness, which I totally respect that.
Yeah, absolutely.
He sold it. He sucked at it, but he sold it.
He went into it. Shatner. I feel the same way about Shatner's music.
Although Shatner actually has a couple good covers under his belt. As shocking as that is.
Yeah, they're special, but yeah. I will say that his cover of Mr. Tambourine Man might be the most discordant thing I've ever heard. Disturbing and confusing and kind of scary, which is amazing given what Mr. Tambourine Man is.
Yeah. I don't know. I really like his cover of Common People.
Oh, that's
a great song.
It's one of his...
It's actually better than the original.
Actually, I think you might be right. That's really disturbing.
Because the original is just sort of like this sort of like... almost this interested lilting quality to it. And when Shatner does it, you can feel the frustration and outrage you feel.
Yeah, Common People's not...
Common People's not a good song by the original artist, whose name I can't remember.
It's Pulp.
But when Shatner did it, he's just like... It's basically a song about being angry with some rich girl trying to fit in with the poor kids and talk about how she's got it rough too. And it's just the sort of the disdain and outrage that Shatner sells when singing that. Singing that.
Yeah. Oh, it's basically spoken verse. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's better than when he tries to sing. That actually works for him. And it's lyrically actually a good song. Lyrically, it's just the original performance is lackluster.
Yeah.
Shatner's version just adds something to it.
Like I said, it's the disdain and outrage.
Yeah.
The sort of incredulous, what is wrong with you?
Yeah. So yeah, I just it's nothing much more to say honestly tonight other than we're gonna miss you, Leonard.
Yeah, absolutely. The world is poorer for your passing.
But it was greatly enriched by his being here. So
yeah.
Just want to say thanks to Leonard Nimoy for making my life better. And I think that's going to do it for tonight, guys.
Yep.
Thank you for watching. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I hope you all got something out of it. We'll be back next week.
You are not drunk enough for this, Peter.
No.
I've been drinking since I got home, and I'm not drunk enough for it.
Anyways, guys, we'll be back next week with something hopefully more upbeat. Although I think honestly, this wasn't a downer episode because
this wasn't as depressing as it could have been.
Well, that's because there's so much good to remember about Nimoy, and that's what I wanted to focus on.
Yeah.
Anyways,
dude was awesome.
Thanks, everyone, for watching tonight. We'll be back next week with, as I said, something more typical for us. If you enjoyed the show, if you're watching the recording on YouTube, please do hit like and subscribe. You'll be alerted when new episodes go up on YouTube. If you have questions for us, we usually save time at the end of each episode for questions from the viewers. We didn't tonight because I mostly just wanted to just talk about.
And mostly, it was just us talking about Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
This is bad comedy, Zorch.
It wasn't, yeah. Anyways.
There wasn't a lot of comedy this episode.
No. But yeah, if you got questions for us, you can email them to us. Our email address is surlygrognards@yahoo.com, surlygrognards@yahoo.com. Or you can post them on our forums, which you can find at mechagm.forumer.com. If you got feedback for us, we love getting constructive criticism, so please do send it to us.
Yeah, we love that shit, seriously.
So send it to either the email address or on the forums.
And don't just say you suck. Tell us why we suck.
Well, constructive criticism, please. Though we haven't gotten non-constructive criticism, so
which is good.
We appreciate that. If you've got show topic suggestions, we love getting those.
Yes, holy crap! That makes our lives so much easier.
It makes our lives easier. Also, it means we're able to give shows to you guys about things you want to hear.
That you want to hear.
Right, exactly.
We're able to address the shit that you guys give a fuck about.
Exactly.
As opposed to just listening to me rant about how much I hate elves, as entertaining as that sometimes is.
Yeah, exactly. So you got both email address and the forums, or if you post in the comment section of wherever you find the recording of this, if you want to, that's great too. And sometimes if you ask questions, I'll if it's not something we're going to be able to handle on a show, one of us will try to answer it back in text. Probably me, because I'm the one who does most of the
yeah, because you're the one that actually pays attention to the forums. So I just sort of forget they exist until the day of the show. We record the show live every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern here on twitch.tv/mechagm. I tweet out when the show's about to go live, so keep an eye on my Twitter, which is @mechagm. You can hit me up there if you've got questions also. Although most of the questions I get on Twitter I just reply to on Twitter. That's basically going to do it for this week, guys. Thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate the live viewers and the people listening to the recordings. And we'll see you guys next week, as I said. So until we see you guys next, be happy, be safe, keep on gaming, and live long and prosper, everybody. Bye, humans.